Motivational Monday, everyone. We're dealing with a subject that I know I've had problems with, don't know about you, and that's conflict resolution. There was a time in my life that seemed like conflict just followed me everywhere. If somebody was going to be negative at a grocery store, they were going to be negative to me. Or if somebody was going to be loud and ugly or whatever acting at the movies, they were going to be sitting next to me. Don't know if you've ever had that problem, but I know I did. But at some point in time, we're all going to have some conflicting views or something, or maybe even a conflict with a coworker or with our mate or with our children or any other family member, whatever the case may be. So let's dive right in. Conflict resolution. We got the conflict part down. The resolution part is where we may have issues with. So let's say that we have a conflict with our mate about taking out the trash. And they have committed that on Mondays, I will take out the trash because Tuesday morning, I know that the trash is going to be picked up. And then, of course, on Tuesday morning, you get out, you're already late for work, the trash is not taken out, and you're just having a whole come apart. And so you text them or you call them on the phone, why didn't you do this and da 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 da, and you promised this and blah, blah, blah. And then your day, your work day just goes downhill from there because of the conflicting messages that went on between your mate the night before and what happened that morning with the trash. And so when you come back home, the first thing you do is you're ready to go right in. I can't depend on you. And you said you were going to do this and you didn't do that. And da 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 da. And he's trying to explain is that I had a business call. And after that, you remember you wanted me to massage your back and I forgot all about it. And it just goes on and on. And before you know it, you're not talking about taking out the trash anymore. You're talking about, I never did like your mama with that green dress on anyway. And it just goes from one thing to another. And then after a while, then you're feeling remorse and you're feeling bad because it didn't take all of that. It didn't require so much negative energy that we gave the situation, but we find ourselves in it again. So how do we handle those kind of conflicts? The first thing to remember is that not everything is a 911 situation. What I mean by that is we don't always have to respond right then, that second, to something negative or conflictual that's going on in our lives. Sometimes we feel like we have to say something right back, or sometimes, I know for me, sometimes I don't even think. Before I know it, I'm just going on and I'm in the middle of a conflict. But if we can remember that one point is everything is not 911. We have at least a few seconds to step back and to say, is this something that I even need to deal with right now? Or do I have a whole lot of other things going on that's going to end up coming into this particular conflict that doesn't need to come into this conflict, and that's going to make this conflict a whole lot worse than what it actually is. So let's take that time and think about it. Is I do not have to respond right this minute. Then it's always good to plan your response. Go back over and think about what the conflict was and how do I need to respond to it. And sometimes it's very good to write the scenario out. The reason being is because when you write it out, you can actually see like, this is not even something that I need to deal with, or I was just having a whole kind of a day, or whatever the case may be. Or I'm glad I didn't say anything because I would have said this, this, and this, and that is not even necessary. So if you go back over or write out, this is what happened, this is how I would like to respond, is this a good response? And then decide when is a good time to talk about it, especially if it's someone that's near and dear to you, you want to make sure that you give the right response and that they give a positive response. And you can do that whenever you plan. Honey, we need to talk about how you're not cleaning your room up, or how you keep promising that you're going to cut the yard and then you don't, and you get upset when I hire somebody. So what is a good time to discuss that? And I would like for it to be Thursday at 8. Is that good for you? That's when the children are asleep, this, that, and the other. That's important to get a date and a time, because sometimes when people know that there's going to be some major discussion, sometimes they don't ever want to discuss it. And if you just leave it up to them, where we need to discuss this sometime, or can you talk to me about it, they may dodge it because they don't want to deal with the conflict. But that can become a conflict within itself. So it's good if you can get a certain time, and then, as I said, let them know this is what we're going to be talking about. And then whenever we do the conflict resolution, is we have a cutoff time as well. Because I know, being a woman, if we don't have a cutoff time, it'll be the next morning and we'll still be hashing stuff out and talking about it. And we've gotten no sleep that night, and that leads to a whole other conflict. So it's important, and especially when you're talking to others, is I'm just going to take 15 minutes and hold me to that. Or we're going to need that hour if it's a mate, and let's hold to that, whatever the time frame, and they can agree to that. And people will agree more readily whenever there is a time set, because then they know we're just going to deal with this at hand, and it's not going to end up becoming a whole epic series. And especially with your mates, lots of time, they get real restless a lot of time, and sometimes they stop listening, or they will say ugly things so that you'll hush, and all those kinds of things. And you want the conflict to be resolved in a very positive way. And so you already know what you're going to say, why you need to say it. You have the time constraints. And then whenever you have the discussion, you stay just within that particular discussion that you said you were going to stay with. Like I made the example where you start first talking about the garbage, then you start talking about every time I see your mom, she wears that green dress and her potato salad is always nasty, or whatever the case may be. And that can lead to the conflict resolution being unproductive, and being, as I said, something that can be very hurtful and painful for the person. So we're staying right with whatever the conversation is, whatever I said, this is what that I have thought about that needs to be said, and how this can be resolved, and stay on that task. Men complain a lot that women are historians, is that we go back. You've always said you're going to take the trash out, and you never do. And I remember back in 1985 that you told me this, that, and the other. And that does not make the person feel good. That leads me to the next point. If at all heavenly and earthly possible, when you have a conflict resolution, try to allow that other person to save face. It is to come to a positive decision where everybody can win, and not where one wins by the other losing. If at all possible, make it where that person goes away feeling positive about the discussion that was had, and you do as well. So we're not out to throw daggers at the other person and to down them or all of that. We're there to say that you offended me by saying this, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to explain yourself, and see if we can't come to a better way of, when you have something to say to me, that it's a more productive way and I can receive it in a more positive way. And then at the end, thank you so much for talking with me, and that we were able to resolve, sorry about that, to resolve this conflict. Then at the end of that, let it go. and just start all fresh again. Because if you have resolved it, and if you've moved on, now next Monday night, now you're still looking out the corner of your eye, and you're getting a whole attitude because now we talked about that he was going to take that trash out, and I'm going to see if he's going to take it out, and we're looking there. He knows. And so sometimes people can be rebellious. And just because I said I was going to take it out and you giving me attitude or whatever, I'm going to wait till I leave to work in the morning. So you think that I didn't take it out because I leave before you, whatever the case may be, because people want that control over themselves. And so it's important that you let it go and give that person an opportunity to make that right and to move on from it. And even if you have the same conflict, deal with that particular issue. Why do we keep having this same conflict? Instead of going back over and then you did this and then you said that and da 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 da, is okay. The way we resolved the conflict before, I see that that's not working, that something is still wrong. And so how can we come to a better decision where this conflict can actually be resolved and it not be to this level again, or it not be a conflict or a problem at all? So the first thing, as I had said, is to see what the conflict is, not have to have a whole 911 situation right then where I've got to say something and something has got to happen and blah, 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 blah. As much as you can, step back and evaluate. Then give yourself time to think about what needs to be done with the conflict that may be brewing. Even how did I contribute to the conflict? Because sometimes we do contribute to it, especially if we've had bad days or negative ideas or thoughts about the person anyway, and then they say good morning and it's on and popping. So it's important in evaluating is, what did I do, or what didn't I do, or what could I have done better? Then set a time, a goal for where we can deal with the conflict. Then just stay within those perimeters of dealing with the conflict, and then let the conflict go. And always remember to allow that other person to save face. One of my favorite shows of all time is the Andy Griffith Show. And I loved when Barney was on. When he wasn't on, I didn't like it quite as much. And one thing I loved about the Andy Griffith Show is that Barney thought that he was the most awesome, that he was such an awesome deputy. He thought he was the best deputy in all of North Carolina. And as we know, he was a little inept and he was always having problems, and something he was doing was always wrong. But why did he think that he was so great? It's because Andy always allowed him to save face, always tried to give him the benefit of the doubt and to cover him whenever he could with goodness and positivity. And as a result, Barney thought he was great. And that's what it's all about, is pouring into that other person to deal with the conflict as quickly as possible and pour love and kindness and positivity into the other person. I hope you've been able to get a little something out of this, our Motivational Monday. And guess what? I look forward to seeing you again. Okay, have a good Motivational Monday.